there is a pre-test on the inside of the book. Hopefully these 10 questions are going to be your takeaway today, okay? I want you to give these 10 questions your very best shot. Some of you may fly through them and know them, all of them, just fine. But some of you may think, I'm not quite sure on this one. And hopefully, taking the pre-test will prove to you you might need to brush up on some things. Unless, are you a CFO? Anybody a CFO? Accountant? Okay. Juan is, okay. Juan, you better get all 10 right there, buddy. But anyway, give these 10 questions your best shot because they're the points that this training addresses. And then we're going to go over them at the end, and everybody's going to know upside down and sideways what the answers are. He's 12 years old, and his friends and family have been telling him, Johnny, you make the best yo-yos ever. And so he's going to start a business, okay? Today's workshop is doing starting the business. We're going to be a 12-year-old boy named Johnny. We're going to start a business, and we're going to do 4 months of an income statement, cash flow statement, and balance sheet. We're doing this not to become accountants. I am not an accountant. My name is Rhonda Alexander. I work for the Great Game of Business. I've been with one division or another of the company for 7 years. And this is my passion. This is my passion. And training you all to train other people is fantastic because this course is not to make people accountants, but it is to demystify terms and these financial documents. Financial documents are the scoreboards of business, okay? They are. That's how you know what your score is in business. Are looking at your income statement, looking at your balance sheet, okay? And a lot of people, and even people who have business degrees, you get rusty, okay? You get rusty. You're only a brain surgeon if you do brain surgery every day. And so even those people in your organization who have business degrees, even people, I've even had accountants come up to me because accountants don't fill out all 3 of these documents usually on a regular basis. They're usually in a silo of receivables or payables or whatever. And so today's workshop is to demystify some terminology that you should hear on a regular basis in your huddles. Terminology like income statement or P&L, balance sheet, gross margin, net profit, okay? And this little training, which today it's going to be the Texas Yo-Yo Company, has been around for over 20 years. And I work for an organization called SRC. And when you're hired with one of the divisions of SRC, we have over 1,200 employees. And so you'll go through this class as your first, the first stone in your journey to financial and business literacy. Because at Great Game, we believe that teaching people business and giving them the opportunity to contribute to your business and understand how Texas Air makes money, how Texas Air loses money, you know? And like question number 7 is my favorite question because you can't believe our profit and cash the same thing. You can't believe how many people don't know the right answer to that question. And so this is a simple business simulation to drive home some basic terminology and basic business principles. That's why we're here. And it's very effective because of its simplicity, okay? It really is. And I was just telling Randy last night, I don't customize this in the sense that it's going to be a little boy making airplanes or repairing airplane parts, okay? Because then your participants in the workshop would be focused on, oh, well, you can't really do that in real life, you know, or you can't do this or you can't do that. You guys today, the reason we're using it, we are using manufacturing, but the reason we're using yo-yos is that's something that it's just for the sake of example, okay? And so hopefully you'll maybe even learn something today that you can take, and I'm going to be available for any of you that are going to facilitate this. You have the PowerPoint. I'm going to send more trainers manuals, and if you it takes once or twice teaching this to really get comfortable with it, but it's really, really easy to teach to people. And the main thing is tell people right off the bat, man, we're not here to make you accountants, okay? This is very, very simple stuff, and we're here to just demystify some stuff and get a better understanding of it, okay? So that's what this class is about. Now, when you open the book, what worked for Grandpa years ago, especially in manufacturing, is not really going to work today. And I don't read this part word by word to you. I just make some of the high points on it because you usually don't have time. But encourage all of your students to read this section about a little bit of the history of manufacturing in the United States. And we all know that there was a time when command and control was the order of the day. And you had the mentality of management versus the workforce. And the workforce didn't trust management, and management didn't trust the workforce. And I read in an article recently, you know, there's so many blogs out there and bullet point articles about leadership, but one of my favorite ones I've read is what makes a great leader is trust. And trust is a two-way street. And you have a leader of your company that trusts you all with the information. Randy, as the owner of this company, trusts you people in the organization with information. He's willing to share it with you. And that's fantastic. That's called open book management. And open book management is a very wonderful way to do business, okay? Great Game brings to the table of open book management that even sharing information with people, if you don't tell them what the information means and you don't tell them how they affect the information, then you're not really getting all you could out of the organization. And for people who, I've had students come into this workshop, frontline workers, and they have this attitude, okay? And this attitude is very, very common, and it comes from, you know, it's a defense mechanism. It's a defense mechanism, and we all have it when we're in a situation that we don't know what's going on. And you all, hopefully, within the next 20 minutes or so, you will feel very comfortable once we start this, and you'll know what's going on, and then you don't have a defense mechanism anymore. But most people who are working on the line, and even some people who are in management, if you don't know exactly what to expect, you have a little bit of a wall built up, okay? But the beautiful thing is, this workshop is all about getting rid of that wall, okay? So you don't have it in huddles. When you have a huddle and you're talking smack about your PBT or your net profit percentage or whatever it is, everyone there is going to understand exactly what you're talking about and be able to contribute. Because if the guy that's out there painting in the paint booth understands how he affects the income statement and what lines he affects the income statement, he could bring some very, very valuable information to the team. Okay, so that's what this class is about, and there was a time in manufacturing, especially in the United States, but actually all over the world, where it was the absolute opposite of this. Okay, you didn't share information with your people, and even the whole birth of middle management, they were caught in the middle truly, because they didn't know everything that was going on with the executives, and they didn't know everything going on with the workers. And when you have an organization that not everybody understands exactly where you're headed and exactly what it's going to take to get there, How is your team going to get there? You know, yesterday in that Cowboys Denver game, they had a plan. They had a plan for that game, you know? And yeah, you tweak the plan as you go, but you still have plays. And so you teach every member of the team what the plays are. And you make sure that they know exactly what their part in that play is. Okay? Same thing in this. Jack often says, Jack Stack wrote the book, The Great Game of Business, 20 years ago. The 20th anniversary edition just came out this summer. And it has a little more content in it, but it speaks very highly of a methodology that the book has been out for 20 years, and Random House Doubleday wanted to republish it again, okay? Most business texts, 1,000 business texts come out, or thousands, more than 1,000. Thousands of business texts are published every year. But this has legs because it's the right way to treat people, and it is the right way to improve your net profit percentage. So that's a win-win for everyone. It's a win-win, okay? So we know that there's a new day in the global economy because margins are razor thin. So even though I would say you're in a niche industry, okay, there's competition. And where there's competition, we're going to see in our little simulation today, there's opportunity to do it for a penny cheaper, okay? And we're going to talk about that. But we're living in a time when margins are thin, competition is fierce, and a competitive advantage in any organization is everyone knowing how the business makes money and how the business loses money, okay? What I just said, financial ignorance is one of the biggest barriers, and if you all can educate everyone in your organization, and everyone is very comfortable with the terms and the basic business philosophies, you really have a competitive advantage. And we're going to see why in our little thing. Okay. And the first thing you need to do when you are starting a business is you're going to determine what your product or service is going to be. Now, some companies make a product and then they also provide a service to support the product, okay? And some people just make a product. Some people just perform a service. So the very first thing you need to do to determine what you're going to do when you start the business is, what are we going to do? Well, okay, today we're going to make yo-yos. It's going to be of New England hardwoods. The dimensions are 3 inches in diameter and 1.25 inches thick, and we're going to paint them in 3 different glow-in-the-dark colors. Okay? So that is our product. Now, we're not going to perform a service today to support the product. We're just going to manufacture a handmade yo-yo, okay? That's what we're going to do. Now, if I came up to any of you, and the next thing you're going to do is you're going to say, is there any room in the marketplace for this, okay? And Johnny plans on selling these yo-yos in his neighborhood, which we're going to call his neck of the woods today. Well, okay, the first thing you need to do when you're looking at the market and you want to start a business is there somebody out there already covering it? Is the demand already being met? And today, Johnny has done his homework and he's looked at the marketplace. And there's only one yo-yo in his neck of the woods you can buy. It's a cheap plastic made overseas yo-yo. It sells at the corner drugstore and it's $3.50. And he's bought 2 of them over the years, and even he, a yo-yo expert, cannot make this thing work, okay? So that's the only yo-yo available in his neck of the woods. It's a cheap plastic yo-yo, and it's down at Walgreens on the corner, okay? Sells for $3.50. So he has asked himself all of these questions. Of course, it has a use. His friends love to play with yo-yos. It fills a need. It's affordable. Who will buy it? How many can I sell? And can it be easily copied? And my favorite question to ask, if this is such a great idea, how come nobody else is doing it? Okay? Wow, how exciting is it that you actually came up with a new idea? okay? This hitch is a new idea. And of all the people on the planet that are thinking of ideas, there's still room for a new idea. And so you have to ask all of these questions because the percentage of new businesses that go out of business is very high, isn't it? And it's because they didn't do their homework. It's usually not because they don't have a wonderful product. A lot of people have a wonderful product, but they just can't succeed in business because of the marketplace, okay? So, the next thing you have to determine is how much is it going to cost? And why do we need to know how much the yo-yo cost? Well, if I don't know how much it cost, how am I going to know how much to charge for it? Okay? So if you look on page 5, we have 2 different bill of materials. The first one is the things that can be exactly measured, okay? So we know we need 2 yo-yo halves. We know we need that little dowel in the middle and 6 feet of string. Those are things that can be exactly measured per yo-yo. Those items total 66 cents. But then we also have materials that we buy in the bulk, okay? And so Johnny made 10 yo-yos. He made 10 yo-yos and he averaged what it took of the bulk materials, and it took a penny's worth of glue, 2 cents of the sanding belt, and 7 cents of the glow-in-the-dark paint. So he has 10 cents worth of bulk materials, okay? If you add that to our 66 cents here, we have material costs per yo-yo of 76 cents, okay? Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at how much time. So when he made those first trial run of 10 yo-yos, today we're going to use something called a standard cost system or a benchmark. Okay? You have to know how much it costs you to make this product right here so you know if you're keeping on profit or not, okay, with materials and labor. So we're going to use a standard cost system, and so he went through all of the different steps, okay, of making the yo-yo, and he's decided to pay himself $4.20 per hour. It's more than he was making mowing yards, so it works for him. And he goes through, and after he makes 10 yo-yos, it averaged out 45 seconds to sand them, 85 to paint them, 15 to glue them, and he tests them, tie the string on, and then he tests them for 20 seconds. That comes to a total of 3 minutes. Well, if you take 3 minutes by $4.20 an hour, that's 21 cents per yo-yo. Added to the cost, the 70 cents cost of materials. So now we're up to a cost of goods sold of 97 cents, okay? 97 cents, and 76 for the raw and bulk, 21 cents for labor, and then direct overhead would be added in this. But today, in a very unrealistic way, we don't have any direct overhead or any overhead of any kind. Grandma is letting us use her kitchen table to make the yo-yos. She's not going to charge us rent, utilities, or insurance, or anything like that. But now there are different kinds of overhead. And direct overhead is included in the cost of goods or cost of services. And I like to think of direct overhead of if the meter is only running on the overhead when you're there making the yo-yos, it's directly related to producing the yo-yo, and it's direct overhead, and it's in your cost of goods, okay? But the meter on health insurance doesn't quit whether you're here making stuff back there or not, right? The health insurance meter goes all the time like this. And you have rent, some rent that the meter goes whether you're here or not, okay? Anything that the meter keeps going whether you're here doing your job or not is usually another kind of overhead, and it's not considered direct overhead. Direct overhead is usually only incurred when you are here making yo-yos, okay? Does everybody understand that? Well, so today, you know, Johnny needs to make this yo-yo as inexpensively as he possibly can to get the most profit that he can, and I kind of see an opportunity right here with 20 seconds in the labor. Why do we have to test every yo-yo? What's the big deal about that? You have several customers. You have the top 20, that's not what you call it. What'd you call it, the list of the top 20 customers?
Yeah, we have our top 20 that represents 80%.
Yeah, okay, so you have the top 20. And I guarantee you, you can ship them 500 shipments that are absolutely spot on. There's not a darn thing wrong with them. But the 501st shipment that there's a quality issue with, that's the one you hear about. That's the one they think about. That's the one they talk about. And they're going to, because there are other places to go out there, it sounds like, they're going to think twice about, hey, do we want to have this, deal with this trauma again with that same company? And I contend that even though we are in a most competitive time right now as far as price goes, that we can never sacrifice our quality assurance, okay, just to get the cost of goods down. And it's that important, because in the end, most customers will say, oh, you know what? I was telling Randy a story about my husband's company. My husband's company makes soap. And so I live in Springfield, Missouri, and you all have heard of Joplin, Missouri? And Joplin, evidently there's some TV show on the air that's called Trick My Truck. Okay, my husband's company has been selling truck wash detergent to the same truck wash in Joplin for probably over 20 years. And last week when Trick My Truck came to Joplin and had all of these uber expensive tricked out trucks, and they were all cleaning them and everything, well, a new employee of ours used the wrong formula for some kind of chrome shining thing, and it dulled the chrome instead of shined the chrome. And that was a little bit of a problem. And this customer, who had been our faithful customer for over 20 years, and we had never screwed up one time, okay? He's going to stand by us, and he knows we stood on our head to hire metal polishers and everything and make it right. But the point is this: quality assurance is very, very important, and I want you to understand that quality assurance is built in to your labor time, and therefore it's in your cost of goods, okay? Quality is built into your cost of goods. So we have a cost of goods of 97 cents, and now we know how much it costs. Johnny's going to decide. The cheap plastic yo-yo at Walgreens sells for $3.50. He's going to sell his yo-yo for $3. He's going to enter the marketplace with a superior quality product at a lesser price. And he thinks that he will really, they'll sell like hotcakes, okay? So he's going to price his yo-yo at $3. So now he's going to develop a sales plan. We're on page 8. Okay. Why do I need a sales plan? Why does Johnny, a little 12-year-old boy, need a sales plan? Why does Texas Air need a sales plan? Why does anybody need a sales plan? Oh, I love to tell this. I love to tell this story. Okay, right here is the day, this is day 0, okay? Right here. That's day 0, 5 years ago, when a salesman for SRC came in the door with a $40 million contract. Okay? No, I'm sorry, it was $70 million. A $70 million contract. His name is Harley Owens, and Newstream makes engine kits. And this wasn't just any contract, it was a contract for kits for MRAPs. And an MRAP is a mine-resistant armor-protected vehicle for the military, okay? $70 million contract. How could that possibly be a bad thing? How could that possibly be a bad thing? $70 million contract. Well, it was a bad thing because it was not in the sales forecast. It literally fell out of the sky. Okay, so here's day 0, and the $70 million contract is here. Here's 30 days later, right here, okay? So for a $70 million contract, this one had $50 million of cost of goods, okay? $50 million in materials and labor. So here's day 0, and here's day 30. And at the time, Newstream, the division that got the contract, was only about a $80 million company. So this almost doubled their yearly capacity with one contract, okay? And I'm using this as an example because I want you to understand the ripple effect. Well, and it turns out, I'll just tell you right now, that they were able to accept the contract and make it work because SRC Holdings had just sold a business and they were sitting on a boatload of cash, okay? But normally on any other given day, they wouldn't have been able to do that. But let's look at this situation. Here's day zero, $70 million contract. Here's 30 days later, okay? Well, at 30 days later, you all are the original workforce at Newstream. Well, I've got to double you. I've got to double my workforce. I've got to find people in the community that want to come and work, double my workforce. And if you all today, if I sent you back to your job and I said, oh, you need to train this new person, if everybody in the company had to train someone new and get them up to speed, what does that do to your productivity? Slows it down a little, doesn't it? It slows down your productivity. But anyway, that's what we're going to do. And so here I'm training new employees. And oh yeah, everybody likes the pay fairy to come to their checking account every other Friday, right? Yeah, you're not going to come to work. You can't come to work. You have bills to pay. And so the pay fairy has to come to your checking account. Well, the pay fairy just doubled the amount of wages they have to pay, okay? And so at 30 days, I'm doubling my workforce, and I'm ordering as fast as I can from my suppliers. So now you all are my suppliers. Okay? Well, you're my suppliers, but guess what? You have suppliers as well. And they have suppliers as well. And so if I come to you, the beautiful thing about a great sales forecast, and this is what SRC is known for, is our ability to forecast and sales and costs. But the beautiful thing about the ability to be really good at forecasting is you can give your suppliers a heads up, okay? You give your suppliers a heads up. Hey, we got a big deal coming, okay? When you all got the deal with United, I'm sure that there's suppliers that you would communicate with that this is eventually, this is on the tarmac, this is what we're gonna do. And so here's the thing. You are my suppliers, and you can't possibly give me any better than 30-day terms because your suppliers are doing this to you. They're not giving you any better because they're all rush orders, okay? So to make this thing work at 30 days, not only have I doubled my workforce and I have to give them paychecks every other Friday, but I have ordered supplies from all of you and you've ordered supplies from all of your suppliers. Okay, well here is day 60. Okay? And at day 60, we are in the full throes of production of these $70 million of MRAP kits, okay? And at day 60, I'm still paying a doubled workforce, but guess what? The supplies that started coming in 30 days ago, I've got to start paying my suppliers for those, okay? So, like I told you, $50 million in cost of goods is starting to go out the window in this time frame. Well, here, this cup right here is day 90, okay? This is day 90. And at day 90, I might actually start shipping some engine kits. Now, the day that I start shipping engine kits, is the government on the dock to give me the money? No, no. At day 90, I'm shipping, and that's when I recognize the profit on the income statement. But here's day 120, and that's when money might start coming in, okay? That's when the money might get here. And so $50 million has been going out the door for wages and supplies for 120 days for us to finally start getting the cash in, okay? The profit was over here on the income statement when we shipped the goods, but the cash comes in here. Profit and cash are not the same thing. And that's why you need a sales plan. Now, a healthy organization like SRC that had just sold something and they're sitting on a lot of liquid assets can seize an opportunity like that. And that is kind of it's kind of an exciting story because I saw it in real life and I saw it play out, and it was exciting times at SRC. But my point is this: accepting a PO, you have to know what resources you're going to have, okay? And for Johnny to even go to the hobby store to buy his first month of supplies and get his business started, he's got to know how many yo-yos he's going to sell in month one, right? Of course he does. And so in month one, he's decided he's going to sell 10 yo-yos. And so we know that we have to go to Hobby Lobby, buy enough stuff to make 10 yo-yos. He's going to sell 30 in month 2, 60 in month 3, and so on, okay? So we're only going 6 months out, but the company I work for, we do our forecasting out 5 years. For 60 months, twice a year, we have to stand up in front of everybody and tell them what we're going to do over the next 5 years. But once you get that pattern down, it's incredible how you start to track your resources better and know what you're going to need. Because to start a business takes what? It takes a lot of resources, okay? So that's why we need a sales plan. So we're on page 9 now, and we have 20 bucks in our piggy bank. We have 20 bucks in our piggy bank, but we're going to need a little bit more than that to start the business. So we decide that we're going to borrow $10 from Grandma, okay? Now, Grandma, very unrealistically, as our banker, is not going to charge us interest. That's something very unrealistic. Grandma's not going to charge us interest. But for the sake of keeping things very, very simple today, so we can make it through these 4 months of financials, we're not going to pay interest, but I'm going to show you where it would go if we did, okay? Now, Randy, if my first month I plan on selling 10 yo-yos and the cost of goods are 97 cents per yo-yo, do I only need $9.70 to get started? No, because of my bulk items, okay? To get started, I've got to buy those bulk items, and so we are going to need a little bit extra money than the 97 cents per yo-yo. Because, and plus, this is exciting. We're going to buy a tool. We're going to buy a paintbrush to paint the yo-yos with, okay? So let's get started. We're on page 10. Okay, we're going to talk about our first balance sheet. A balance sheet is so easy, and so few people who aren't accountants really understand what it is. This is how easy a balance sheet is. Assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity, okay? If you had a plane and it was worth $30,000, that plane is your asset. It's worth $30,000. It equals the $10,000 loan you have at the bank on the plane, and then that means that Texas Air has $20,000 in equity, okay? And so your asset on the balance sheet will always equal, all your assets combined will always equal your liabilities and your equity in it. That's a balance sheet. Assets equal liabilities and owner's equity, okay? So let's look at what our first balance sheet looks like, okay? Here we have our $20 from the piggy bank and our $10 from Grandma, our $30 in cash, okay? We haven't gone to Hobby Lobby and bought our inventory or our paintbrush yet, so we have all of our $30 in assets is in cash. Here on the right-hand side of the balance sheet, we have our liabilities. Well, we borrowed $10 from Grandma. Johnny decided that he is going to not make that $20 a loan, but it's going to be equity in the company, okay? So we're going to put our investment right here, our original piggy bank investment, $20 under owner's equity. We haven't started business yet. We don't have any earnings, and so $30 in cash equals $30 in liabilities and owner's equity. That's a balance sheet. Well, now Johnny's going to go to Hobby Lobby and he's going to spend some of that $30, okay? So let's look at this next balance sheet. This, after he goes to Hobby Lobby, he has reduced his cash to $7.86. He now has $20.64 in inventory with the bulk materials and the other bill of materials. And then he has a $1.50 paintbrush. We're going to name that paintbrush Old Faithful because you're not going to believe how much we get done with that paintbrush in the next 4 months, okay? And we're not going to depreciate the paintbrush. It's going to remain at $1.50 because we're trying to keep this simple, okay? So we still have $30 in assets, right? We've just shifted them from cash to inventory and tools. Now, a lot of companies get in trouble because they don't have enough cash to maybe meet payroll or to pay suppliers. And it's a very delicate mix on how much cash you can invest at any given time in inventory and tools. But what do you need to do what you do out there? Inventory and tools. You got to have it. You got to have it. And it's a very delicate decision to make on how much cash you tie up. Mike, would you mind if Randy paid you next month gave you a couple of noses of airplanes?
Yeah, I want cash.
But they're so cute, those little airplane noses out there, okay? Everybody at this table has personal cash flow, okay? And how long are your suppliers going to continue to supply you with your goods if you don't pay them? And you can't pay them with airplane noses either, okay? And so it's a very, very important decision and delicate mix on how much of your assets are liquid or in cash and how much is tied up in inventory and tools. And back during the recession, a lot of companies were sitting on too much inventory and they didn't make it. They didn't make it. And so it's very, very important. But look, we still have 30 and 30. Guess why they call it a balance sheet? Because it has to balance to the penny. And this is where I like to make the point that I'm so glad I'm not an accountant. Okay? When you think of all the stuff, wait till we just keep going in all of this. Just in our little story today about Johnny making yo-yos, there's too much stuff to take track of. I mean, expenses and all, it's crazy, okay? But it has to balance to the penny. And that's where it's give the accountants a hug time, okay? Now, let's keep going. Does everybody understand a balance sheet? Assets equal liabilities and owner's equity. Let's keep going to page 12. Okay, we have started our business and we had startup capital, which I forgot to point that out. Capital is just the, everyone's heard the word capital, but in your class when you facilitate this, I really want you to discuss it a little tiny bit because it's one of those words that's out there. Everybody's heard it, like balance sheet, but you may not know exactly what it is. Capital is simply financial assets or the financial value of assets such as cash. The factories, machinery, finished goods, inventory, raw material inventory, finished goods inventory, raw material inventory, and equipment owned by an organization, okay? And we're going to talk about your capital goes on your balance sheet, okay, under your assets. Like if you had all those tools you have out here, those all would be listed here on your balance sheet, tools and equipment, okay? And they're assets of the company. Your cash is listed on the balance sheet. Your inventory, your finished inventory and your raw inventory, okay? That goes on the balance sheet and that's capital. Now, let's look at our first income statement. An income statement is also called, and a lot of people in manufacturing call it a profit and loss, okay? Income statement is just the term the accounting term they use in textbooks and everything. Do you all call it a P&L? No. Or do you call it an income statement?
P&L.
P&L. Okay. So a profit and loss, P&L, income statement, it's the same thing, okay? Very important point to make with everybody because not everybody realizes that. And the wonderful thing about an income statement is it was invented back in the 1400s by Venetian monks, okay? And it tracks the revenues and expenses of a company. It's usually 1 month at a time, and so let's call this income statement October. And in October, we only have one revenue. It's our sales of $30. Our cost of goods sold, okay, is deducted from that $30. And what was our cost of goods? Remember, it's 97 cents per yo-yo times 10 yo-yos that we sold. And then we sold 10 yo-yos at $3 selling price for the $30 in sales. This is our cost of goods. And then here is our gross profit or our gross margin. Do y'all call it gross margin? Okay. Gross profit. Okay. $20.30. Now, I could come running up to Tina and I could go, oh my God, Tina, my first month in business, I sold 10 yo-yos and I have $20.30 in gross profit. Well, that really doesn't tell her how profitable I am. The number itself doesn't give you any reference. So here, everybody get their calculator right now. This is what I want you to do. I want you to take $20.30 and divide it into $30 and tell me what my gross margin percentage is. You have to turn it into a percent. 67. It's 67%. Okay? That tells you everything. If I come running up to Tina and I go, oh my gosh, Tina, first month in business, 67% gross margin. That's awesome. That tells a lot about it, okay? So, always, you remember on your pre-test when it said what financial document do you look at to determine the profit of a company, the profitability of a company? Well, it's the income statement. You want to look at the income statement. So you can either you can take $20.30 gross margin, divide it by 30, or you can take the net profit and income and divide it by 30. And we're going to do that in a minute. Now, expenses. Remember I told you Grandma doesn't charge us rent, utilities, insurance, interest? If she did, that's where it would go, right here, under expenses. Okay? So our PBT, profit before tax, is $20.30. Okay? We do have to pay tax. There's a lot of unrealistic things in this little story today, but Johnny does pay tax. Everybody take your calculator and give me 0.25 times $20.30, and you should get $5.07. 0.25 is our tax rate, times 2030, get 507, and that gives us a net profit or a net income of $15.23. Did everybody get that? Okay, that's how you figured the tax. Now, 25% tax is unrealistic usually. I bet Texas Air pays more than 25% tax. What's the realistic number like, Randy?
At least like a 31.
I was figuring it was probably 30-ish, okay?
Yeah, it might be going up a bit.
Okay, so everybody take $15.23 and divide it by 30 and tell me what my net profit percentage is. Because if I go running up to Mike and I say, Mike, oh my gosh, my first month of selling your new trailer hitch, I got $15.23. That really doesn't give you a text of how profitable that is. But if I tell you 51% net profit percentage, yeah, that's smoking. Now, let's talk about that a minute. That's totally unrealistic. Because guess what? If Randy makes a yo-yo and he makes a 51% profit at it, Mike's going to come along and make the same yo-yo, sell it for the same price, and make a 49% profit. And then Jen's going to come along and she's going to undercut him. And then he's going to undercut her, and so on and so on. And finally we get to Tina. And Tina, we're living in the Walmart world, and I'm not trying to disrespect Walmart, but that's our reality, okay? If somebody can do it and sell it for 1 penny cheaper, that's what it's going to be. And in the real world, In the real world, your net profit percentage is single digits. Your net profit percentage is single digits, usually in the real world. Okay? And companies that are worthy of your investment dollars on Wall Street have a single digit net profit percentage. And then the joke is, well, I actually have a customer in Georgia. He's in the wholesale coffee distribution, and I guess that's just really cutthroat. And his goal over the next 2 to 3 years is to get his net profit percentage from 0.9, 0.9%, up to like the 1.7 range. That's how competitive it is. So then you would say, okay, Bill, why are you in business? Why are you in business if you're only making a 0.9% profit? Well, he's in business because there's a whole lot of people, laborers in the cost of goods that are making a living, okay? There are people, salaried positions here that are making a living. And while he would like to improve his net profit, okay, there's a whole lot of reasons to be in business. But the point is this: we're living in 2013, cash is king, and competition will bite you in the rear every time they can, okay? And so unless you have something that is so unique, like you're sitting on a plutonium mine, okay? Most of us, there's plenty of people out there that can do what we do, okay? And that's everything. And that's why everyone in the organization needs to know how this business makes money and how it loses money to keep that precious net profit percentage intact, okay? Okay, so that's our first income statement, our P&L. Let's go do our next balance sheet, okay? Now, we're on page 13. And it tells us in the middle of the page, this is very important, trainers. In the middle of the page, it tells you your balance sheet cash and how it's calculated. So let's all look at that. The beginning cash was $7.86. We collected $30 from our sales. And you know what? We're in a cash business, right? We're in a cash business. And so we get the money right then. And then we paid out $2.10 in wages and $5.07 in taxes. And so we are now at a cash balance, if you do the math, of $30.69. That's how we get this cash balance, is there in the middle of the page, okay? Now, our inventory after we made those first 10 yo-yos is down to $13.04, and we still have Old Faithful, the paintbrush, for $1.50. So look, this is exciting. This balance sheet, we're up to $45.23 in assets. Isn't that exciting? After 1 month, we've almost doubled our assets. Not doubled, but 1.5 times our assets. But if we have to balance, and this side of the balance sheet went up, what went up on this side of the balance sheet? Earnings so far. Earnings so far, where did that come from? Where did that $15.23 come from? Okay, it was our net profit. And if this is October's P&L, that $15.23 is not going to be on November's P&L. November will only have the sales, the revenues, and expenses for November. So this $15.23 at the end of October has to go somewhere. The profit has to go somewhere, and it goes right here on the balance sheet under earnings so far. So we still have the $10 loan to grandma, the $20 investment from the piggy bank. Our net profit from month 1 is $15.23, and that all comes to $45.23, and we balance. Isn't that great? That's good stuff, isn't it? I like it. Let's keep going. Okay, our next balance sheet And what I really need to point out on page 14, when you're training, there's no way you could possibly determine how much you need to buy because of bulk supplies, okay? We have to be told in the book how much we need to go to Hobby Lobby and buy. So we know that our sales forecast, our sales plan, told us that we are going to sell 30 yo-yos in month 2. So now we're going to start month 2 on page 14. It tells us at the top of the page, a chart says we need to buy $19.80, okay? Now, what we need to buy is not necessarily going to be 30 yo-yos times 97 cents, okay? The cost of goods per yo-yo, because of the bulk items. So that's why it has to tell us that. And you just need to be sure you point that out to people as they're going through this. So now it tells us we've got to go back to Hobby Lobby and buy $19.80 worth of stuff. So now our cash that on our last balance sheet was up is now back down because we had to go. And it tells us once again that we have $32.84 in inventory. We still have Old Faithful, the paintbrush, and so we've shifted from cash to inventory again. We still have $45.23, and we're ready to make those 30 yo-yos. So we made the 30 yo-yos. We went and bought the stuff, and we're on page 15. Our income statement, they sold like a firecracker. We are making these yo-yos, Johnny is, and he sells out as soon as he gets them made, okay? So we're right on our sales plan of selling 30 yo-yos. And here we see we now have $90 in revenues by selling 30 yo-yos at $3 each. We took $30 and reduced our inventory by 97 cents per yo-yo for a cost of goods of $29.10, okay? We have $60.90 in gross profit, and I want everyone to take $60.90 and divide it into 90 and tell me my percentage. Okay, so we still have a really high gross margin percentage. Randy, is 68% gross margin realistic?
Most likely not,
No, it's not.
but I'm very positive.
It's not, and companies usually have a gross margin percentage anywhere from the low 30s up to around 50, okay? That's usually what your gross margin percentage is, okay? And we're going to do a little exercise this afternoon that we're going to look at that a little closer. So our PBT is $60.90 because Grandma doesn't charge us rent, utilities, insurance, etc. We have $15.23. If you take 0.25 times $60.90, you get $15.23. And now we have a net profit, gee whiz, of $45.67 in our second month of doing business, okay? Let's keep going. Now, we have to do our next balance sheet, and I really like this part right here because we're about to cover something that's very important in business. Okay, our next balance sheet, and it tells us in the middle of the page once again how we come up with the $79.36. We had a beginning cash of $10.89. We collected $90 in sales, but then we took out $6.30 in wages and $15.23 in taxes. So now we are sitting on cash of $79.36. Our inventory's been reduced to $10.04, and we still have that $1.50 paintbrush. Oh my gosh, at the end of month 2, are you kidding me? We have $90.90 in assets? That's fantastic, okay? We started with 30 bucks. Well, because of that, we decide we're going to pay back Grandma, okay? We're going to give Grandma back her $10 because we have $79.36 in cash. So let's turn the page, okay? Look at the balance sheet after we pay back Grandma. What happened to my assets? I did have $90, and now I have $80. How many of you were raised like me that all debt is bad? All debt is bad. That's how I was raised, okay? But I want to make a case to you as business thinkers today that debt can be a good thing if it's in the right proportion. Now, there's such a thing called debt to equity ratio. And so on this side of the balance sheet, your debt is divided into your equity and you get the ratio of that, okay? And so right now, before right here, we have a debt to equity ratio of 0.5, okay? That's amazing. Anything that goes up to a ratio of 2, you're okay. SRC back in 1983 had a debt to equity ratio of 89 to 1. Yeah. That never happened before or since or anything. It was crazy. Jack Stack says it was a divine intervention. Okay? But over here, if I'm your banker, I'm going to look at several things on your balance sheet, but I'm going to look at what your debt to equity ratio is. Well, okay, debt to equity that is 0.5 to 1 is amazing, and this is a good ratio, and it's a healthy balance sheet. Like I said, it can go 2 to 1 and still be considered healthy. But when you have debt here, that means you got to have an asset on the left, right? Debt on this side of the balance sheet gives you an asset on this side of the balance sheet. It either gives you cash, inventory, or equipment, or something, okay? And you have to have cash, inventory, equipment, and all of that good stuff to be in business. So debt in the right proportion is a good thing on your balance sheet because it means you've got an asset corresponding on the left-hand side to it. Okay, so we decide we want to pay back Grandma because she doesn't charge us interest, okay? She needs to put her money where she can get a return on her investment. So we pay back Grandma, and now we have no debt. We have 0 debt, and so our entire assets are now equity. Owner's equity in the business. Our cash was reduced. We're still sitting on $10.04 in inventory. We've still got Old Faithful. But does everybody understand the point I'm trying to make on the balance sheet? That if you have debt in the right proportion, it can be a good thing in business because it's going to give you an asset to do business with on the left-hand side. Okay? Everybody with me on that? Okay, let's keep going. Now on page 17, we're going to go back in time to month 1 and we're going to do our first cash flow statement. Okay? And this is where we're going to see for sure, once and for all, profit and cash aren't the same thing. So if we go back to month 1 and look at our cash flow, if a balance sheet is kindergarten simple, assets equal liabilities and owner's equity, a cash flow statement is preschool. Okay? It's like the old checkbook register. It's your inflows and your outgoes. Okay? Your deposits and the checks you write. It's your inflows and outflows. And to track those, okay, is very, very important. So we had 2 inflows in month 1. $30 of startup cash and $30 in cash sales. We had to go to Hobby Lobby to get started to make those first 10 yo-yos and buy $20.64 of stuff. We paid ourselves $2.10 in labor. We bought Old Faithful, that paintbrush, and that's an outflow of cash, okay? And then we didn't pay any loans back in month 1, so that's 0. We paid our taxes of $5.07, so our outflows total $29.31. If you take $29.31, subtract it from 60, you get a net cash flow in month 1 of $30.69. Okay? Let's look at month 2. In month 2, we only had 1 inflow. We only have that one $90 inflow. Okay? Our sales. We had to go buy $19.80 at Hobby Lobby worth of materials. We paid ourselves $6.30 in labor. We did not buy a tool in month 2. Okay? So that's 0. But we did pay back Grandma the $10. We paid our taxes of $15.23 for total outflows of $51.33. Subtract that from 90 and you get a net cash flow of $38.67. Okay, so if I have a net cash flow in month 2 of $38.67, can anybody remember back what my profit was in month 2? My profit in month 2 is on the income statement. My profit in month 2 is $45.67. That's my profit. It's on the income statement. My cash in month 2 is $38.67. Is there a difference? Yes, there is. And remember when I was telling my story about the $70 million thing? Here at 90 days is when we ship the goods and the profit is recognized on the income statement, okay? But down here at 120 days is probably when the cash flowed in. 90-day profit, 120-day cash. They are not the same thing. So let's look at the bottom of page 18, because here is a term that a lot of people have heard the term, but they don't understand what it means. Accrual versus cash. And I'm just very simply going to read this to you because I can't get it any more succinct than this. Many businesses use an accrual type of accounting system. Accrual simply means that the net profit is measured by the difference between revenues and expenses instead of increases and decreases in cash, okay? So accrual accounting is simply using the income statement, okay? And you're measuring the difference between the revenues and expenses. So an income statement is accrual accounting. You're measuring the revenues and the expenses and you're coming up with the net profit. This is the accrual accounting system. Now, Johnny is choosing to use this today, okay, so he can track what his profit is, but he is a cash business, okay? He's a cash business, so he could only operate with a cash flow statement, except for one thing. He wouldn't know how profitable he is, okay? You have to use the accrual system and use an income statement to determine your profitability. Does everybody understand this? Because I'm trying to keep it as simple as I can, okay? So we're measuring our revenues and our expenses here, determining our profit, and then our cash is simply the inflows and the outflows, okay? What's coming in and what's going out. And this is not our profit, it is our net cash flow, okay? And I can't get the description. I love this paragraph. I found it and I put it in there. I love it. I can't get a better description than that to explain it. Here is where the fun part begins, and it really is. This is where you really start learning. I want you to turn to page 19. And Juan is going to help anyone who needs assistance. He's going to be my
Class favorite. Teacher's pet.
my intern.
Intern. Oh.
Okay, now let's look at the facts that they give us at the top of the page. In month 3, we're going to fill out our income statement, P&L, cash flow, and balance sheet. We're going to sell 60 yo-yos, okay? We're going to remember that in that 97 cents cost of goods, remember part of it's labor and part of it's materials. You need to separate those on your cash flow statement, okay? So that's why but our cost of goods is still 97 cents and we still have that 25% tax rate. Now everyone, look at me. I'm gonna save you getting tripped up, okay? I want everyone right now on your income statement where it says less expenses, put 0. And what kind of things would go in there if we did have them? Right, exactly, okay? Interest, if we paid interest, okay? And remember a point that I failed to make, and I apologize. If we had paid interest, okay, on Grandma's loan, the principal on that loan, of course, goes on the balance sheet, The principal goes on the balance sheet, but the interest would have gone on the income statement under expenses, okay? And I like to think of things that are usually paid monthly, like we pay interest monthly usually, right? And so most things, expenses that we pay monthly are going to be on the income statement. But the principal balance is going to be always on under liabilities on the balance sheet. Now, as this fluctuates and goes up and down, so will the expenses for interest on your income statement, okay? Randy, in real life, does your loan balance go up and down on a frequent basis? Ours at Great Game does. You know, on your pre-test questions, there's a question that says true or false. Can you have a month where you don't make a profit and you can still stay in business? Well, sure you can. We do it all the time at Great Game, okay? Well, we used to. And that's when your loan balance here goes up and your expenses goes up because you're going to pay more interest, okay? So the principal balance goes on the balance sheet and the interest goes on the cash flow. Okay, and so, okay, now month 3. So you've written in no expenses, 0 expenses, and then also, very important, we can't possibly calculate how much we need to go to Hobby Lobby and buy for this month. We're going to make 60 yo-yos. So it tells us on this little chart here in the middle of the page, we need to buy $41.28. Well, that's where it says on your cash flow right there at the bottom of 19, it says less materials purchased. Well, that's it, $41.28. You can fill that in right now, okay? You need to purchase $41.28 in materials, and then it tells us the ending balance. Where will you need that ending balance? Well, you'll need it on the next page when you fill out your balance sheet. You have this balance sheet for month 3 that you're going to fill out. But please, everybody, use these hints down here. This is how you come up with your cash balance on your balance sheet, okay? Right here, and here's how you come up with your earnings so far. It tells you right there how to do it. So get started. We're going to take 15 minutes if you need 15 minutes. Okay, let's look at our income statement for month 3. And you either need to fill in or correct because I want you to have every number in your book correct, okay? Well, first of all, we sold 60 yo-yos in month 3 at $3 each for $180 in sales. Our cost of goods, remember, is 97 cents per yo-yo, and we haven't varied from that yet. So that comes out to be $58.20 for a gross profit margin of $121.80. You know what I'm going to ask? Did you turn it into a percentage, sir? Okay, I want to know what my gross margin percentage is. Okay, it's 68. Okay, write that to the side. Because does 121.80 tell you anything about the profitability? No. So you have to turn it into a percentage. We still don't have expenses, rent, utilities, insurance, etc. So our PBT, profit before tax, is 121.80. We do pay taxes, so we're going to take the 0.25 tax rate times our PBT, and we're going to get $30.45. That leaves us with $91.35 in net profit. What is the percentage of net profit? 51. You take the net profit divided by sales or the gross margin divided by sales, and you'll get the percent. Okay? So if you just put 91.35 in the calculator, divide it by 180, you should get 51%. Okay? Is everybody with me? Let's keep going. Let's do our cash flow. Now in month 3, we only had one inflow of $180. The chart that was provided to us, we can't possibly calculate how many materials we need to go buy at Hobby Lobby. So it tells us we need to go buy $41.28 worth. We had labor of 21 cents times 60 yo-yos comes to $12.60. We didn't buy a tool and we didn't pay back any loans in month 3, but we did pay the $30.45 in taxes. We have total outflows of $84.33. Subtract that from our one inflow and you get a net cash flow in month 3 of $95.67. Okay? Everybody with me? Let's keep going to the balance sheet. It tells us that to calculate our cash balance, we go back and pick up month 2 of $69.36 and we add that to our net cash flow of $95.67 and we get $165.03. That's how we get our cash balance. We go back to the previous balance sheet, get that balance, add our net cash flow to it, and that's how you get your cash balance. It tells us, because we can't possibly calculate it, we are down to $5.72 in inventory. We still have Old Faithful, the $1.50 paintbrush. And so now, oh my goodness, at the end of month 3, are you kidding me? Johnny is up to $172.25 in assets. That's doing pretty well for a kid that started with $30, and he's debt-free. No liabilities. We still have our $20 original piggy bank investment. So our earnings so far, it tells us on our last balance sheet we had $60.90, and then we add that to this month's net profit. Well, our net profit this month was, what, $91.35. You add those two together to get your earnings so far, totals up to $172.25, and we balance. Did everybody understand that? Are you with me? Okay, because guess what? We've got exciting times. We're going to do month 4. Let's turn to page 22. In month 4, we're going to sell 180 yo-yos. But the fun thing is, look here, under our facts, we are going to buy a work table for $20 and 2 new paintbrushes. Okay? Now, we're going to buy 2 new paintbrushes, but we're going to keep Old Faithful. We're still going to have Old Faithful, okay? So, buying the work table, what is that going to hit? It's going to hit our cash flow, isn't it? The work table, and that's going to be an outflow, buying the work table and the brushes. So why don't you go ahead right now on your cash flow statement, and where it says less capital tools purchased, why don't you put $23? Okay? Less capital tools purchased, $23. But now, if we're going to keep Old Faithful, our balance sheet under tools is going to be what? $24.50. So go ahead and put under tools on your balance sheet $24.50, because we're going to keep Old Faithful, the original paintbrush. Now, when we buy capital expenditures, and the chairs you're sitting on were bought with a capital expenditure. The table you're using was bought with a capital expenditure, okay? It goes on the balance sheet. That table and those chairs would have a line under assets on the balance sheet, okay? And they're a capital expenditure. They also affect your cash flow because you paid for them, right? But they never show up on the income statement. They never show up on the income statement because they're not part of sales revenue and they're not part of expenses. They're capital expenditures. And remember what capital is when we go back to that definition? It's the land, buildings, equipment that you use to do your business, okay? It's not the monthly expenses that you pay. So something that an expenditure, and it's its own budget category too, and I don't want to get too deep here, but I want you to understand that capital expenditures never show up on the income statement. The income statement, now, okay, let me say this. If you bought a table like this, that's a capital expenditure. It hits your cash flow statement as an outflow, and it's an asset on your balance sheet. But if Randy hires someone to come polish this table every month for $50, if he hires someone to come polish this table every month for $50, That's going to be an expense on the income statement. Okay? The maintenance of the table is an expense on the income statement. But the table itself is a capital expenditure that does not show up on the income statement. It only shows up on the balance sheet as an asset and on the cash flow as an outflow. Does everybody understand that? Because it's very, very important. Okay, I think you're ready to fill in month 4. You've got 15 minutes. Let's go ahead and look at month 4. Our income statement, we have 180 yo-yos times $3. Amazingly, they're selling like hotcakes still, okay? So we met our sales plan. We have 97 cents times 180 for 174.60 on our cost of goods. That leaves us with a gross margin of 365.40. Everybody tell me what the percentage is, and I want everyone to calculate it because I want you to know how to do it.
8%.
There you go. Okay, we still don't have expenses. Our PBT is 365.40. We take 0.25 times 365.40. We get 91.35 in taxes for a net profit or net income of 274.05. What's the percentage? 51. Very good. Everybody there? Any questions? Let's keep going. We only have one inflow of $540 in sales in month 4. It tells us we have to go buy $135.36 in materials. We have labor of $37.80. That's 21 cents times 180. We did buy those tools. We bought 2 new paint brushes and a table. The table was $20, the paintbrushes were $1.50 each. For $23 we spent on capital tools, okay? We did not pay off any loans this month. We paid $91.35 in taxes for total outflows of $287.51. Subtract that from $540 and you get a net cash flow of $252.49. Okay, are you with me? Let's keep going. Now, our balance sheet, it tells us how to calculate our cash. And we take the previous month's cash plus our net cash flow from month 4, we add them together and we get $417.52. Our inventory, it tells us, is down to $4.28. We have $24.50 in tools, 1 table and 3 paint brushes. We still have Old Faithful. Wow, at the end of month 4, we're up to assets of $446.30. That's incredible, okay? We don't owe anybody any debt. We paid off grandma in month 2. We still have our $20 piggy bank investment. Our earnings so far, we picked up the balance from last month, added our net profit from this month, and we get a total of $426.30 for a total of $446.30 of assets plus liabilities and owner's equity. Now, let's turn the page. Now, in our happy little story today, Johnny has always met his standard cost, right? We've never fluctuated from our 97 cents per yo-yo of standard cost. But here's the thing. That's not realistic, okay? Now, I told you the story about Newstream. They make engine kits. In those engine kits, they can have anywhere from 50 parts to 200 parts, okay? Sometimes more. And even though, if you put all the divisions of SRC together, automotive, heavy duty, electrical, power systems, all of them, all 12 of them, okay? They do have some really wonderful purchasing power, okay? We have a holding company, SRC Holdings, and so why do companies have holding companies? What's the purpose of it? Let's say that all of you, that's just about the right amount of people, are a division of SRC, and I'm SRC Holdings, okay? Why do you all want to pay a little bit of your profit to me to manage things for you? Well, let me tell you why. Holding companies serve a purpose, and one of the purposes is if I add all of these divisions together, I come up with over 1,200 employees. Okay, but just this division has 100, and just that division has 100. So if you went out and bought health insurance on your own, your group would be rather small. But if we all buy together and purchase health insurance together, we have a large group. We have diversified risk, and we get a better rate. Same way with purchasing power on parts, okay? If all of us use some same parts, okay, we have more purchasing power if we do it through a holding company together. Same way on money, okay? Now, this division was a joint venture, and I had planned all along that after about 5 years, when I got this joint venture up and running, I, as Holdings, would sell this. Okay, I would sell, it was a John Deere joint venture, 50-50. I sold it, the other 50% to John Deere. We went into it knowing that all along, so I get that cash. That cash comes to the holding company. That's how I was able to fund. This guy is Newstream, and he's the one that had that $70 million contract, okay? So you have the combined purchasing power, but also borrowing power. You have the combined borrowing power of all the divisions with one. So if we borrow, if I as Holdings have relationships with 2 or 3 banks, and as you're, okay, Randy is now a division, let's say he's automotive, and he needs to buy a new piece of equipment or whatever, okay? His receivables are really high right now. He needs some operating capital, an operating capital loan. He can borrow that through Holdings and our line of credit because we have a better rate than if he went directly to the bank. Because I have the assets of all of you, okay, as my borrowing power. I also have the debt of all of you, too. But in the end, it's a better relationship to have a holding company. And I just think of it as buying in bulk. I really do. You know, you're buying insurance in bulk, you're buying purchasing power in bulk. We're even buying, all the divisions get a great rate on freight. You know, LTL, FedEx, UPS, because of the purchasing power. That's the purpose of a holding company, okay? Well, no matter what you do, if it's what you guys do, if it's remanufacturing engines, no matter what it is, there are several components in your cost of goods, okay? And one of those components is the bill of materials. And you've got a lot of things on your bill of materials per job. And prices go up. What is one of the reasons why prices go up? It's real simple. It's a 3-letter word, starts with a G and ends with an S. Gas. Fuel costs. Okay? And when fuel spikes, that has an exponential effect on all kinds of things. Not only shipping, but you know, if you need this part to do what you do here at Texas Air, you got to get this part to here first, and then you got to get the part back out there. Okay? So fuel rates have a huge impact on price. And let's say that these pieces right here are something that you need to do what you guys do. Okay, and just let's say that I've got 100 of these on a job. Well, even if just 5%, even if just 5 out of 100 have a price increase, that's still going to have an effect on what? On my gross margin, okay? It's going to have an effect on my gross margin. So material costs, and my husband owns a small business, and he would rather be boiled in oil than pass along a price increase to his customers. It's a very painful process, okay? And he does something, it's more of a commodity business than you all are. You guys are these unique jobs and everything, but when you make the same soap all day, every day, okay, and there's a lot of soap makers out there, if you pass along a price increase because you've had price increases on your raw material, there's a lot of pushback and people start shopping around, okay? So you'd rather not pass along a price increase, but how much how big of a hit can your variance, because of the variance on either price or labor, can you take, okay? So let's just do this little exercise right now. Let's look at the right way. If Johnny stays doing the right way and he does 30 yo-yos, he's going to end up with a PBT of $60.90. That's 68%. Now, over here, he took 3 times too long, okay, to do the yo-yos. That's an additional $12.60 to his cost of goods in labor. That takes his, and really when you look at the numbers, it doesn't really look that bad, $60 down to $48, but look at the swing in the percentage. We have a 14% swing in our PBT percentage. Well, guess what? Guess what your net profit percentage is at Texas Air roundabouts? 10. And so you can't have a 14% swing in your PBT. It can't happen. And you all have a double-digit net profit percentage. Most companies do not. They have a single digit. So imagine, and this is just with a labor variance. This is not with material variance, okay? So there's going to be a mix here and there. Now, there actually are times when you have a variance so often, it's time to change the standard. Okay, it's time to change your standard cost on that item. But sometimes it's an improvement. Sometimes you found a more efficient way. And you guys aren't out there making widgets. I can't, even though I've toured your factory, I can't really say that I understand how you bid your jobs. I know you have a labor rate and everything. But for the people who do make widgets, okay, it's a lot easier. And I know that some of you at the gathering met the Paul Mueller Company. And they have 5 divisions. And so here are the 4 divisions that are in Springfield, and then you're the division right here in Iowa. And they fabricate stainless steel tanks. Everything from big tankers, you know, they haul like milk and stuff, to, you know, like they had to remove one of the walls of the building because they made a big stainless steel thing for Morton salt. It was so big, okay? They do it all. And they have a lot of custom work that it's a one-time deal, okay? And they were really, they really sucked at their quoting of those custom deals, and they've gotten a lot better at it. But the division in Iowa, this guy over here are the 4 divisions in Missouri, and this guy over here, he makes stainless steel dairy tanks all day, every day. They're cookie cutter, they're the same thing. They've been making those tanks for years, the tanks never change, and he knows exactly what his costs and his labor are gonna be on those tanks. They're cookie cutter. It's almost like a commodity type thing. Well, then all these other divisions, Randy's got the one that, oh my God, it's the custom stuff, the Morton tank one-time deal that you have to remove a wall of the building to get it out, okay? And so it's harder for him to stay on track on labor and materials because he's doing something that's never been done. And so because they're under the same holding company, this guy over here is a lot more profitable than this guy, this division. But none of you get a pay increase or a bonus unless the whole company as a whole generates a certain PBT. And it took me almost yelling at the people I was doing this class with in Iowa at the dairy tank division. It took me to, they were so in my face, and they said, but Rhonda, we are profitable. We deserve a raise. We deserve a bonus. It's those people in Springfield. And I said, your reality is you're all under the same holding company, and you better start praying and figuring out how you can get better, even better up here. You're profitable now, but there's a way you can get better. Or you look at me in the eye and tell me you can't, and they said no. And then I can assure you, as a person who's trained all the Springfield divisions, they're doing everything they possibly can to correct where they're hemorrhaging cash. And they did it. and it's a Cinderella story. And if you were at the gathering, you heard about it. They went from a negative 2 million, I think it was, to a positive. They just busted through a positive 10 million, okay? And it's because everybody was taught the basics, and people said, oh, just like you were, this discussion we were just having here, okay? And it's a process, but variances are reality. Okay, so everybody understands that today was unrealistic, and that literally every month in reality on your income statement you're going to have variance lines, okay? And so the point to make when you're facilitating this workshop is these were unrealistic, very unrealistic. In real life, you can't take a 14% swing. You just can't have it, okay? Okay, so here's what we're going to do now. Turn the page. This is your final chance to really drive home how we're going to do this. And this is not month 5. This is absolutely not month 5. This is a standalone scenario. So here we go. Johnny has become kind of famous in his neck of the woods, and so a neighboring town heard that he makes these amazing handcrafted solid wood yo-yos. So they are getting ready to have a Little League banquet, and they want 750 yo-yos, okay, presented at their annual banquet. Now, they have to be there by the 20th of next month, and they will pay us cash at the time of delivery, okay? So the customer is only willing to pay $3, so we can't raise our price, but here's the twist. They want a sticker on both sides of the yo-yo, a Little League sticker, okay? And those stickers are going to cost us 15 cents each or 30 cents per yo-yo. So our cost of goods are going to go from 97 cents to $1.27, okay? But our margins are so huge that even though they won't pay a penny more than $3 for the yo-yo, we're going to look at if we should take this or not. So let's start filling this in together, okay? And like I said, this is not month 5. So on page 27, let's look at these facts. Like I told you just now, our cost of goods is going to be $1.27. We've got to pay Dad $10 of gas money to deliver the yo-yos, okay? We have to deliver them to Irving. And our cash position right now, we've got $500 in the piggy bank. We have $500 it tells us in the piggy bank. Now, we're going to have to buy a new inventory of $795 worth of stuff, and we don't need any tools. We're going to borrow Dad's tools. He said we could. So on our middle of page 27, our sales are going to be $750 times 3. What does that come to?
2,000.
Okay, write that in. We're looking at whether we should accept this deal or not. What's our cost of goods going to be?
$952.50.
Very good, $952.50. That means our gross profit is $1,297.50. We have $10 in expenses. Finally, we get to write something in that line. $10 in expenses. So that makes our PBT $1,287.50. How does it look so far? Pretty good, doesn't it? Okay, let's see how much cash we're going to need to go to Hobby Lobby and buy all these supplies. So let's fill out this cash requirement chart. We have 76 cents times 750 pieces. What does that come to? $5.70. We have the stickers, which are 30 cents times 750, $2.25. The labor, which is 21 cents times 750, $157.50. And then we have that $10 of gas expense for Dad. If you add all those up, you'll get $962.50. Less total cash in the piggy bank is $500. So we have a shortfall of $462.50. Now let's look at these questions. Go ahead and turn over to page 28. Do we need to borrow any money? Well, yes, we do. If we need to borrow money, how about, it would be $465, except if we wait to pay our own labor wages and pay Dad his gas money at the time of delivery, okay? Which is both very realistic things we can do. So now, if we borrow $300 from Grandma, okay, we have a chance to make a profit before tax of $1,287.50. Now Johnny can buy some kind of a tricked out bike and an iPad for that, okay? So for borrowing $300, we can make $1,287.50. We can pay Grandma back the day we deliver the yo-yos, okay? So does it look like we should do this deal? Is it a well enough capitalized deal? Do we have enough equity in it that we can do it? Yes. I believe we can. Okay, so let's fill out the statements on page 29. $22.50 in sales, $952.50 in cost of goods, because we added in that 30 cents worth of stickers. We have a gross profit of $1297.50. Our gross profit went down. Percentage went down. Why? Stickers. The stickers. But we're still at a fine margin there, wouldn't you say? So then we have an expense for the first time. Dad's $10 there. For PBT of $1287.50, take 0.25 times $1287.50 for $321.88 in tax. And you get a net income of $965.62. What's my percentage? 42.9 net profit, okay? It was worth borrowing $300 from Grandma to do this deal, definitely. So our inflows are, we had several inflows. We had our cash sales of $22.50, Grandma's loan of $300, and our piggy bank cash of $500. We had to go to Hobby Lobby and buy $795.72 worth of stuff. We had $10 in gas expense to Dad, and our labor at 21 cents per yo-yo is $157.50. We had that, we pay back Grandma the loan at the time of delivery. We put our taxes in. We have total outflows of $1585.10. We subtract that from our inflows and we get a net cash flow of $1464.90. Okay, our balance sheet looks like this, and it's a very unique balance sheet because it's 1 month, it's not cumulative. We have cash of $1464.90 because that's our cash flow, net cash flow for this month. Our inventory tells us it's down to 72 cents. Is that, well, like a pencil it's down to? And so we don't owe Grandma, we already paid her back, and this is the month end. Our investment of $500, our earnings so far of net profit of $965.62, and we balance at $1465.62. Okay? Does everybody understand what these documents are used for now better? Do you have a better grasp of what these documents are used for? Okay? Well, let's go back over our pretest. Turn back to your pretest. Okay. Which of the following items is not found on a balance sheet?
C.
C. Interest expense is found where? It's as an expense on the income statement, okay? Right here, that's where interest expense would be, less expenses, okay? Well, which would you find on an income statement? A, of course, we just said that. Number 3, which accounting report, and you guys better get this right or you're not leaving the room. Which accounting report more accurately reflects profitability? So Mike comes up to me and he goes, Rhonda, I have a new business and I'd like for you to invest in it, my Montana hitch business, okay? And I go, Mike, I want to see two things. I want to see how profitable you are, so therefore I'll need to look at your income statement, right? And then I also want to know what your debt to equity looks like on your balance sheet and how much cash you have. How much cash you have tied up in equipment and inventory and things like that. If I'm going to invest in your business, that's what I want to look at right now, okay? But you look at the income statement to determine profitability, but what do you have to do? You have to turn it into a percentage because numbers tell you nothing. There's no reference for them, okay? Number 4, which of the following is the basic accounting equation? C, assets equal liabilities and owner's equity. Number 5, which of the following is the most important to the daily operations of the business? C, cash is king in 2013. And it will be again in 2014. But what happens if I don't make a profit this month? What happens if I don't make a profit this month? I still have suppliers and payroll to meet. So what happens? Well, my loan, first of all, I have more interest expense on my income statement, and my loan balance goes up on my balance sheet, okay? So I can pay the bills, so I can meet payroll. That happens. A lot of businesses are very seasonal or cyclical. So definitely the answer to what is most important to daily operations is cash flow. A loan payable is categorized as B, a liability. In accounting language, profit and cash are the same thing. That's false. All day, every day. Profit and cash are absolutely not the same thing. Profit occurs usually before the cash occurs in most business because of why? Accrual accounting. We recognize the profit in an accrual income statement or P&L, and then the cash is usually on terms of net 30. Number 8, it is possible to show a loss on the income statement for that month yet still have enough cash to run the business. Well, of course, your loan balance just goes up. Number 9, operating overhead includes rent, supplies, utilities, and interest expense. True or false?
False.
It's false. Why is it false?
Doesn't include interest expense.
That's right. Interest expense is not included in operating overhead. Okay, number 10, the final question. How are you guys doing? A standard cost system or a budget provides a benchmark to measure your performance against. True or false?
True.
Well, of course it's true. So the very last thing you need to do when you're teaching this class is, first of all, congratulations, you just started a business and you just did 4 months of financials, okay? And when was the last time anybody did that? And the accountants don't count, okay? But the accountants often are in a silo of either payables or receivables or anything, and they often can glean something from this class too. So it's very important that people feel really good about, and that have we demystified anything for you today? I mean, was there any terminology that you've heard a lot before, but you weren't quite sure? Oh yeah, a balance sheet, of course, it's assets equal liabilities and owner's equity, okay? So it's very important to try, and then the book belongs to you guys. Write your name in it, take it home, teach it to your kids. You can't believe how many people have tried to make their kids understand, you know, the concept of this. And let me tell you something, this is on a lower level than Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Okay? I can never answer a question on that show, but I can wiggle my way through this book, okay? And they keep it very simple and basic because it's just used for you guys to understand how these documents fit together, how they flow, and what they're used for.